Wow, well, I should have known. It would have been almost impossible just to do one clip covering all of the hidden meanings, the symbolism that Huang Mingzhi put into his music video clip, Fragile or 玻璃心. Now, in my first clip, I covered a whole lot of ground, many of the key points in there. Now, since I put that out, thousands of people have come in and left comments down there, some of them pink perhaps, but there have been explanations going deeper and deeper down into the rabbit's hole. Rabbit's hole, 兔子洞. Or today, maybe I might use the word 兔子穴. There's a reason. Have a look at that character. Keep it in mind. It'll come up later. But first of all, I have a huge apology to make. 真的对不起，别生气气。Minta maaf ya, panggil salah nama. In my last clip, most of the comments as you read down the thread, you'll actually see what the majority of comments about. I got the name of Namewee or Huang Mingzhi mixed up. Now, there's a reason for this, so hear me out, but actually there's no excuse. I screwed up. Huang Mingzhi. And actually you should have known because I even mentioned the word Mingzhi sounds like 名字, which means name, which is where his name in English, Namewee, comes from. What happened? I was reading up on Jimmy Lai, who was the founder of Giordano, Apple Daily newspaper, which was banned in Hong Kong. His Chinese name in Mandarin is Zhiying, and Zhiying, Zhi, it's the same tones, different meaning, different character, but same tone as the Zhi in Huang Mingzhi. And as I was going through, I was swapping between Cantonese and Mandarin. And so in Cantonese, it's actually Lai Jiying. And so all of this Zhiying, Jiying was going through my head. And so when I hit record and I recorded the last clip, it was stuck. And every time I said his name, it came out as Huang Zhiming, which should have been Huang Mingzhi. 对不起. Okay, but let's get into the rest of the Easter eggs. And these are real Easter eggs. You're going to get history lesson, linguistic lessons. We're going to go into Chinese dialects today. So whether you're a Chinese speaker, non-Chinese speaker, you're in the West, you're in the East, there's going to be something in this clip for you and possibly more informative than even the first one. So speaking of apples, now, apples come up a lot in this, and they're referring to not only the Apple News that was banned and censored, that's Jimmy Lai's publication, but take a look at this. I missed it. That apple on the computer has 2 bytes taken out. So this has a lot of connotations. One, it's a non-standard color of the Apple computer, but you can see it's a knockoff. So this is taking a shot at China for just the general practice of stealing intellectual property, making cheap knockoffs, selling them both internally into the world. And so you can see the apple here has 2 bytes out of it, but somebody's still using it. Who's using it? A pink person, Xiao Fenhong. And they're sitting there, keyboard warrior away at their knockoff Apple Macintosh computer with 2 bytes out of the apple. And then you have 2 apples there as well. So a lot of meaning here. There's also connotations with Apple, with Huawei stealing intellectual property from Apple as well. It went out in the press, both in Chinese media and in Western media. And so Apple here actually has several meanings you can read into and then be extrapolated out into a whole lot of different core issues. So the next thing that I need to apologize for is when I mentioned Kimberly Chen or Chen Fangyu's parents' heritage. They are Malaysian Chinese. I said Malay Chinese, and a lot of people said Malay is the Malay ethnicity, not Malaysia. Malaysian Chinese, and this is a very sensitive topic. 真的对不起, I'm very sorry. Minta maaf. That's Malaysian Chinese parentage. And she was actually born, they say, in Cebu, moved to Australia. So as an Australian citizen, now living in Taiwan. So I'm sorry for that. Not Malay, but Malaysian. Okay, 要听话. 要听话. I said in the first one, it's saying, basically, don't say anything or try and get your voice out saying anything that shouldn't go beyond the firewall. But here, actually, 要听话 also has the connotation of obedience. You need to be obedient. Don't just have your own thoughts. You need to be obedient to what the party wants of you. And so that 听话 also has that deep feeling, that meaning of obedience. And then the next one follows straight after that. Have a listen to this. Okay, so have a look here. Yeah. I said in the first one, grandfather. And grandfather here actually has connotations as well. In Hong Kong, yeah is the word for grandfather, but it's also slang referring to the big grandpa which is Xi Jinping. And there are only two grandpas that are mentioned like this, of course. That's Mao Zedong and Xi Jinping. So here, grandpa in this, of course, is referring to Xi Jinping. And then 知道了又要怀念你. And this goes back to when he also said in a speech back years ago, we will miss you, 怀念你. And so this is also being used by Taiwan and overseas Chinese people to refer to the people who have been taken away and never seen again, 怀念你, and their families are missing them as well. So this is something that's been said by him, but being used back, basically saying, yeah, if you say this, you're going to go missing and people are going to miss you. Now let's have a listen to this, and I'm going to break it down even further than what I did last time. 你拥有 This word 拥有, in the first one, I didn't go deeply into this, but actually it shows the meaning of possession or to be owned. So it's talking about China's belief that they basically own Taiwan, they own everything, they own even the Chinese outside of China. I mentioned the whole meaning of 辱华, to offend the Hua. This also gets extended to 辱共, so offending the CCP. So offending Hua, basically Chineseness, the magnificent Chinese race, and the CCP, the party itself. I mentioned that many people in mainland China, when, say, you've got overseas Chinese, despite having lived abroad or not lived in the mainland China for many generations, say in Malaysia or even in the US, in Australia, they will say 回国, to return to the mother country if they know these people are just coming back to visit the mainland. It's still like you're coming home. And many people, even the comment thread, many of the people in the Chinese diasporas all over the world actually resent this. They don't want to feel that they are actually still part of the mother country. However, this is this feeling of 拥有, this possession. And then that goes into the next word, and that's what this is all about, pink and pinkies. So 粉红, I mentioned that 粉红 means pink. 粉 means powder, red. So powder red. And there was this thing of sending beautiful girls out or people to put out these pieces that were in full support of the CCP as propaganda pieces, trying to have people see this pink face of deep red. But also in Chinese, I failed to mention also the word 粉丝 is also the word used for fans. And so 粉, this word for powder, is also another meaning of fan. So 粉红 can also mean fans of the red. And so there are all these deep meanings that go on. That's why it's impossible just to have done it in one clip. So here it's saying basically being a fan of the red and also being pink. So you're actually one of them, one of these pink armies, which is akin to, say, the red army. Here you have the pink army. You're showing your purity in heart. And of course, you're the possession of the state. Now let's listen to the next little bit. So I touched on this, and I mentioned in the last clip it was a bit racist, but actually this starts to go into some factual news as well. 热爱, so to have this hot love or really love 小狗, dogs. And so that goes back to the dog festival. 小猫, cats. 蝙蝠, bats, so that's COVID. And then 果子狸. So 果子狸 are the civets. Back in 2003, there were stories that this SARS epidemic actually started at a civet diner where people ate that and it was passed on. And so these sentences here are not only saying that people in the mainland who are proud of eating anything, but actually this is the cause of a lot of problems there. And then you see the chives in the background. I'm going to get to chives at the end because this goes really deep. So hang in there. We have some more to get through. There are some people actually came into my comment section, and one person in particular got angry that I suggested that it meant this. But the thing is, when Huang Mingzhi put this clip together and he wrote the lyrics, the whole thing was to give all of these different meanings and then it's up to how people interpret it. And so if even one other person has interpreted a meaning like this, well then it's done its purpose. And he's used humor to this extent that he can reach all different people through this very clever manipulation of language, cultural understanding. So if you are not fond of profanity, turn off now. Let's have a look at what's coming next. Okay, so let's have a look at that word 直白. Sorry, we have to come back to it. So in Chinese, here it says 太直白, so not too 直白. Now I mentioned in the first one 直白. So if you look at it at a surface meaning, 直白, it means to be a straight speaker, to speak too bluntly, too straightforward. 白 means white, 直 means straight, like so straight to the point, very open, just saying it how it is. And then the next word, 超直白. 超 means to exceed. Okay, so 超直白, again, too 直白. So that's the surface meaning. Now, in order to understand the other meanings now that are being extrapolated all over the internet and from Chinese diasporas all over the world, you need to understand a little bit about the Chinese language, Chinese dialects, and how people speak. In Malaysia, where Huang Mingzhi is from, they have many different Chinese dialects. Now, you have Hokkien from Fujian province, and you don't just have one style of Hokkien. The Hokkien in Penang is different to the Hokkien spoken in other parts of Malaysia and also in Singapore. And so these have all come through history through different channels into Malaysia and Singapore. And so you've got Hokkien there, you have Hakka, which is Kejiahua. You have Cantonese being spoken. These are some of the main ones. You also have Teochew, so that's Chaozhouhua, which here in Thailand too is one of the main Chinese dialects or Chinese languages that are spoken by the Chinese population here. So you've got all of these dialects. And actually, I did a TED talk several years back in Chinese in Malaysia, where I talk about how to actually switch between these dialects. People in Malaysia do it naturally, but there's actually a system that you can use to map these tones and these sounds to each other. You can just switch between dialects quite easily. Now, in order to understand this, we need to understand also the way that Mandarin is spoken. In traditional Mandarin, you have these different sounds. So say I've got the sound zhi and zi, zhi, zi. In Mandarin are two different sounds. So 知道 means to know. 知 is a totally different word, and the word 知. So say in the word for Huang Mingzhi, the writer of this song, his name is actually Mingzhi. It's this very thick zhi, Z-H in Mandarin. But in Malaysia and in southern Chinese dialects, this zhi sort of goes forward and it sounds like 名字, which sounds like the character 字 in the word 名字 for name. That's why he uses the word name for Namewee, 黄明志, 黄明志. So we've got this zhi to 字. Okay, so we have this word 超 using that same principle of zhi to 字. Here we have 超. Some people in the south or some people in Malaysia, instead of saying chow with this very ch, they might say cao or cao. Now, this word cao can be extrapolated to mean fuck. So this is one play on words that it can mean. So cao, 直白. I mentioned in the last clip that 直白, if said really fast, 直白, and said in a Taiwanese accent, could sound like 直白, 鸡巴, either penis or 鸡白, which is the C word, female genitalia in southern Min. And so that's a different variety of Hokkien, which is kind of similar to some of the Hokkien that's spoken in some parts of Malaysia. It's all of the subset of Hokkien dialects. So 鸡白 means female genitalia. And so if you say 超鸡白, one of the meanings that can come out of that means to basically the C word, which is one meaning. But then we also have vowel shifts. And so chow, you know in English how we have the word out and about, and they joke about Canadians saying out and about. So this ow turns into an o. That happens in Chinese as well. And so we have this same vowel shift going back and forth. In Mandarin, the word to stink is chou. Now that's with a ch, not a t. So not chou, but chou. But if said in the south, they might say chou as chou. So you have this chou there, but then when you put that into, say, Cantonese, chou, stinky, becomes tao, and in Hokkien and in Taiwanese, which is the southern Min variety of Hokkien or Fujian dialect, it's said as tao, so stinky. So here we have all of these meanings, plays on words with this word chao, 超直白, meaning to be too or excessively straight speaking or speaking too bluntly, can actually have these meanings. One, as fuck, 直白, or fuck, the C word, female genitalia. Or if you take it another step forward into the dialects where the vowels actually shift around, it can also mean stinky vagina. And so there are all of these other words that are coming up here. And the fact that they're just singing it nicely in this beautiful love song and they're saying it with a straight face makes it all the more hilarious for some people, depending on who you are, what your language background is, what dialect you speak or don't speak. You're going to be getting different messages for this. So if you have a look at the comment threads of my first clip, you can see this discussion, and there's some pink coming in there, and some people got angry that I said that and saying, no, it actually just means to speak straightforward. Well, it might mean that to you, but the fact that he said that and many different people have extracted many different things from this just goes to show actually there's brilliance in the way that he's put the language together, and that this could be taken to have many, many different meanings. The other thing I wanted to mention, remember how I said in the beginning, and I made the reference to we're going to go down the rabbit hole? That's 兔子洞. Dong. Now, dong is one word for hole, but another word for hole is 学, this character here. And you can see in the actual word, not 直白, but the actual profanity word for female genitalia, you can see this character, 学, being used for hole. In this first one, so 鸡白, the use of it here literally means basically the piece of flesh that you go directly into, I guess. So this is going straight into, and this is the hole. It's very vivid. And then the second one is also, this top part means a door, and then you have a hole underneath it. So again, this is the beauty of Chinese characters, the Chinese language. You have so many different levels. You've got tones, you've got the way you pronounce vowels and consonants, you've got the characters that you use. All of these can be manipulated to convey messages and have plays on words that it's like playing three-dimensional chess compared to, say, Monty Python, or plays on words in languages like English. You're going to love my tones and pitch accent webinar, totally free. Click on the link below, and you're going to train your ear, even if you've never learned a tonal language before, to hear tones across all different tonal languages, including different Chinese dialects. Okay, let's go on. Okay, so here again, you can see, and if you look in other clips, you can see this panda bear making profane gestures here, and he's throwing money, and you're going to see money sprinkling down everywhere. Huang Mingzhi uses the term 撒币, 撒币 meaning to throw away money here, but actually this has many different meanings again. Now remember that 吃, 吃, 知, 资, here we have 十四 shift. So for example, the word 14 means 14, but many people in the South and in Malaysia might say 14. They don't have this distinction, and it sounds like the same sound for 14. Here we have the word 撒币, which sounds like 傻币, and people in Taiwan too, often they'll move this sh further front, so it sounds 撒币 not only means to throw away money, to scatter money around, but it can also mean you stupid effing idiot. And so 傻币, 傻币, stupid idiot. And so when you see people throwing money, you don't only think of Xi Jinping's prosperity, common prosperity policies that he's talking about, which actually weren't providing enough money for people for the chives, but also 傻币, which means stupid idiot. And again, this word bi is the profanity here for genitalia as well. We hear that in a lot of profanity in Chinese, and so there are just so many different meanings and plays on words, and it's basically up to the listener to take which meaning they want from what he's doing. But he's used symbolism to cover many different bases, so then you can interpret, choose your own adventure, choose your own meaning from his symbolism here. Now let's have a listen to this. 每天到韭菜园里, every day going into the spring onion or the chives patch. And so this goes back to the Chinese understanding of chives too. And this goes back to when China was looking to really start to develop, and they thought that they would build up the economy in some of these main cities, and many actually influential people started to become very wealthy on the backs of the little people. I mentioned in the first clip that chives represented the masses, but chives, if you go a bit further, and many people mention it in the comment thread, it's a little bit more than that, because basically you can keep chopping chives down, and as long as you don't get rid of the root, they'll keep springing up and they'll be able to be useful for you. You can just harvest it. So the word chives, every time you see 韭菜, these ones in dark pink here, it actually means harvesting the people for their own benefit. And there's just this constant harvesting and chopping them down. Doesn't matter what you have to do. You might have to get rid of them. That's okay. There's going to be more springing up, and they're going to be convenient to be harvested for your own benefit and being enriched by. And so this concept of chives has this very deep meaning, and the fact that chives are here also with cotton representing Xinjiang province and the Uyghur minorities who are being sent to re-education camps just also goes to show basically they're inferring the hubris that they can do what they want with the chives, they can put them in re-education or whatever, just as long as they're serving the party and they're being useful for them, they will be harvested. Harvesting also has other connotations which I don't want to get into here, but maybe in another clip. And then finally, let's just have a quick look here. Okay, so we have these words, 惊呆 and 吓尿. 惊呆 means to be totally shocked, awestruck, and 吓尿, so scared, it scared the piss out of you. And this is in relation to when you hear spokespeople for the CCP come out and speak about the great feats of China, the CCP, and America, and other people around the world are pissing themselves in fear, just shuddering, seeing how advanced and how magnificent China is and what they're doing. And so this is using this rhetoric and common language that as soon as you hear 惊呆 or 吓尿, you just know that this is the way that people in the party speak. And this gets into another thing. I think I'm going to do a whole other series on 八股文 and 党八股文. This is the language that the party uses. A lot of the time when you hear headlines in the Western media, they're translated at surface level, just like we've seen here, but actually you need to understand this. And this 党八股文 is a subset of language that is used. 八股文 was this old traditional style of language which basically limited people in the way that they could speak. They had to use specific language that was specifically brought in other dynasties back in Chinese history, used for thousands of years to limit people's creativity, and civil servants would have to write in this style. Mao Zedong came out and spoke against the party, so that was the Kuomintang's party, 党八股文, the way that they used language to do this. But now you see this whole set of language that people just know is the style of language that's used by the CCP called 党八股文. Well, it's referred to as that. So this is the party's own subset of language, and people know that if they're going to come out and speak, they need to use these kinds of structures, these kinds of words, and 八股 refers to 8 bones, because in traditional 八股文, you had 8 steps in putting any piece of prose together, and they had to follow these 8 bones. The bones were the structure of it. And so now when anybody says something officially, it has to follow this format. And so 党八股文 is this new genre of party 八股文, party structured speech or structured language that's used to control the masses, to put propaganda across. And when it's put into English in media headlines, or even when Western policymakers are putting their policies together based on what they hear coming out of China, sometimes it seems that they lack the depth of what some of this stuff is actually really meaning. You have to not only have a linguistic understanding, but historical and cultural understanding of the language. So anyway, this is a sample of the language that people just know comes out of CCP spokespeople, 惊呆了 and 吓尿了, and there's a lot more. I'll go into that. So again, if you enjoyed this, please click like, subscribe, share it to people. I hope that I've given insights not only into this clip and what's being said, but into political affairs, into linguistic things. If you do like the language side, like I said, come and take the tones and pitch accent webinar. You're going to love it. It's totally free. Scan the QR code up top. You can come in and continue this discourse in our Discord server. I'm Stuart J. Raj, or my Chinese name, Wang Huaile. I'll see you on the other side.